Hey guys, Bios Ramos, and today the Miami Dolphins defeated the Arizona Cardinals 34-31, and man, what a game it was. The Dolphins came into this game, not heavily favored, even after having these pretty big wins in the past couple weeks that they have. 4 straight wins now it is for the Miami Dolphins, which is great. And, one of the very anticipated matchups of the week, Tua versus Kyler Murray, Xavier Howard versus DeAndre Hopkins. More and more on that, So, it was quite the game. It was quite the game. Now, game went back and forth a lot. Like this: Dolphins scored a touchdown. Cardinals scored a touchdown. Dolphins scored a touchdown. Cardinals scored a touchdown. Dolphins scored a touchdown. Cardinals scored a field goal. Dolphins scored a field goal to close out the half. So Dolphins are up 24-17 at that point. And then the Cardinals come out of the second half, with scoring 2 touchdowns back-to-back. And, took the lead 31-24. Then the Dolphins fired back in the fourth quarter with a touchdown and a field goal to win the game. And then the Cardinals obviously missed the field goal to win the game if you watch the game. But if you don't, I'm telling you right now, close. It was a close game. Now, let's look at some of the team stats, and then we're going to go into some individual stats. So, to start it off, the Dolphins had 312 total yards to Arizona's Cardinals 442. The Cardinals turned over the ball. The scoop and scored that Shaq Lawson scored on. Time of possession. The Dolphins had the ball for 28 minutes and 57 seconds, while the Cardinals had it for 31 minutes and 3 seconds. When you look at first downs, the Dolphins had 24 and the Cardinals had 26. So, what do these stats tell you? The Cardinals, stats-wise and production-wise, had a better game, right? But at the end of the day, the Dolphins ended the game with a win. So what does that tell you about just not only offense, defense? It tells you about the team. The team surrounds their teammates and performs enough to get the wins, which is all that matters. You can have as crazy numbers as you want for stats, but if the biggest stat of all of them is the win column, you don't have much of those. Those are just empty numbers. Look at Dak Prescott when he was healthy. So, with that being said, Dolphins passing quarterback Tua Tagovailoa had 20 completions for 28 attempts and 248 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was sacked 3 times for a loss of 27 yards. And then compared to Kyler Murray, pretty similar numbers, at least in the passing game. Kyler Murray had 21 completions for 26 attempts, 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and was sacked once for a loss of 19 yards. Now, when we look at the running game for the Dolphins, Jordan Howard was our starting back today. Myles Gaskin and Matt Breida were both injured. Myles Gaskin is on the IR. But he could be back as soon as, I believe, week 11 or 12. The sooner we have him back, the better. But, take it with a grain of salt. I think our offense was doing pretty good today. So, Suvan Ahmed, he had 7 carries for 38 yards, and his longest was 19. Tua had 7 carries for 35 yards, longest was 17. And, there were some of those plays that he almost got on pretty much the touchdown to tie the game. He had pretty much a very crazy 2 plays that he evaded sacks, got big yardage on runs. So very, very good of him. Jordan Howard had 10 carries for 19 yards and a touchdown. Longest was 8. That was at the end of the game. And then Patrick Laird had 1 carry for a loss of 1 yard. Now when we look at the Cardinals, obviously, they didn't have their leading back, Kenyon Drake, which was a former Dolphin. He wasn't playing this week. He hurt his ankle last time they played against Seattle. And Kyler Murray had 11 carries for 106 yards and 1 touchdown. Chase Edmonds had 25 carries for 70 yards. And DJ Foster had 1 carry for 2 yards. So not too much, honestly, going on besides Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray was just... the guy was unstoppable with his legs. It was so hard. Without Kyler Murray running in this game, Dolphins could have easily beat the Cardinals. But you add that factor in there, and it makes it damn near a hard game for the Dolphins to win. Now, receiving. Preston Williams left the game after he scored his touchdown. foot injury. They haven't specified exactly what it is, but I was fearful. I thought it was related to his ACL. Thankfully, I believe it's not, and hopefully, he can come back soon. But he didn't play the rest of the second half. But that being said, Devontae Parker led the Dolphins with 6 receptions, 64 yards, and Preston Williams was next with 4 receptions, 60 yards, 1 touchdown. Mike Gesicki had 3 receptions, 42 yards. Jakeem Grant had 4 receptions, 35 yards. Durham Smythe had 1 reception, 19 yards. That almost ended up in a touchdown. We got to the 1 yard line, or about to the 2 yard line on that one. Patrick Laird, 1 reception, 17 yards. Matt Collins had 1 reception for 11 yards and a touchdown. That's his first catch as a Miami Dolphin. And man, that ball that Tua threw was a beauty. I mean, amazing. What a throw. And then Malcolm Perry and Adam Shaheen both got targeted once, but they didn't get the ball. Now, Christian Kirk, he was doing pretty good. He has some wheels on him. So he had 5 receptions for 123 yards and 1 touchdown. And I'm pretty sure this was, the 56-yard touchdown. That was the longest one that he had. And then he had another one that pretty much set up the Cardinals almost in field goal range that they eventually choked at the end of the game. Larry Fitzgerald, 4 receptions, 54 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, 3 receptions, 30 yards. Daryl Daniels had 1 reception for 21 yards and a touchdown. And that one was questionable. Because Byron Jones starts off with coming down with the ball. But as he's coming down, Daryl Daniels pretty much pulls it out of his hand and then is going down into the end zone like that. And they call it a Cardinals touchdown. So my understanding on the rule is, yes, Byron Jones had the ball originally, but Daniels ended with possession of the ball. It was kind of questionable if he actually landed in the end zone, inside inbounds. But even after reviewing the play, they still called it a touchdown. So it is what it is. Dolphins ended up winning at the end of the day, so it didn't really matter. But if the Dolphins would have lost, that would have been one of those plays that, you look back on and it's hopefully Byron Jones can come down with those type of picks, or, we don't get the break of having this guy rip the ball out of Byron Jones' hands for a touchdown that was very, very close to being out of bounds. It is what it is. Chase Edmonds, 3 receptions, 18 yards. Dan Arnold had 1 reception, 16 yards. Danny Isabella had 2 receptions for 10 yards, and he pretty much cost the Cardinals the game. He basically had the first down, and then he cut back down to try to get extra yardage, and it really cost the Cardinals on there at some point in the game. DJ Foster, 1 reception, 7 yards. Max Williams, 1 reception, 4 yards. Now, when we look at fumbles, Shaq Lawson recovered a fumble. He obviously returned it for a touchdown. It was the Kyler Murray one that he fumbled. And Danny Isabella also fumbled, but he also recovered it. And that was a big hit by Van Ginkel on a kickoff return. Andy Isabella fumbles it. People start scrambling for the ball, but eventually Andy Isabella gets back on top of it. And it was a close one. Next, we're going to talk about the Miami Dolphins defense. The defense did not have a good day today. They didn't have the type of game that they've been having the last couple of weeks, that they've been pretty much dominant on defense. And it's mainly credit to Kyler Murray being such an elusive and really good scrambling quarterback that he is. This is nothing to go against him. I actually applaud him for doing this. He's really good at doing that. But this is something that Dolphins have struggled with. This happened with Cam Newton, now it's happening again with Kyler Murray. When you look down the line for the Dolphins, I'm not too sure about what scrambling quarterbacks we could be playing. The Patriots again and the Bills, those are the only real guys who are true scramblers that could really beat you with your legs. So those 2 games are going to be, really decided on that factor. But let's go back to the defensive stats. Tron Baker had 7 total tackles, 7 solo. Byron Jones had 5 total tackles, 5 solo. Eric Rowe had 5 total tackles, 5 solo, and a 1 tackle for a loss. Emmanuel Ogbah had 5 total, 4 solo, and 1 sack, and 1 pass deflection, and a QB hit. Calvin Noy had 5 total, 4 solo, and 1 tackle for a loss, 1 pass deflection. Landon Roberts had 5 total, 3 solo. And then we're just going to rattle off some important stats here. Zach Sealer had 1 QB hit. Shaq Lawson had a tackle for a loss and 2 QB hits and a touchdown. And then that's about it on those type of stats. Now, when we look at the Cardinals, Jordan Hicks was their leading tackler with 7 total, but he had 4 solo, 1 tackle for a loss. Devondre Campbell had 6 total, 6 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, and 1 QB hit. Patrick Peterson had 6 total, 6 solo, and Hassan Reddick had 5 total, 3 solo, and 2 tackles for a loss. Buda Baker had 5 total, 3 solo, and Marcus Golden had 5 total, 2 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 pass deflection, and 1 QB hit. And then some of the important stats, Jalen Thompson had 1 pass deflection, Josh Morrow had 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, and 1 QB hit. And that's about it for the Cardinals. There was no interceptions by either team. Obviously, I've mentioned in the passing stats, neither quarterback turned over the ball in the sense of throwing an interception, which was good on the Dolphins' sense of Tua not throwing a pick, but also not so good for the Dolphins not forcing an interception by Kyler Murray, which was very close. It could have been an interception, but the end of the ruling was a touchdown. Now, kick returns. Noah Igbenogany had 2 returns for 36 yards. The longest was 22. He started returning later on in the game. I don't know why Jakeem Grant wasn't returning, but he had 1 return earlier in the game for 15 yards. And not too sure. They never really revealed why that was happening. But one of 2 things. Either Jakeem Grant was kind of nicked up, or it was because they want Igbenogany to get kind of familiar with that, especially since he hasn't been getting too much time on the defensive side of the ball. But then Andy Isabella had 2 returns for 30 yards. And then Jakeem Grant had 1 return for a punt return on 10 yards. Christian Kirk had 1 return on a punt return for -4 yards. Jason Sanders remained perfect, 2 for 2 on field goals and 4 for 4 on extra points. So keep doing your thing, Jason Sanders. Stay perfect. We love you. His longest was 56, which is the longest. He tied the longest in franchise history, if I'm not mistaken. And Zane Gonzalez went 1 for 2 on field goals, and then 4 for 4 on extra points. His longest was 37 that he hit. That's what sealed the game for the Dolphins. The second he missed that, turnover on downs. Dolphins get the ball, get a first down, and then kneel out the clock. That's pretty much simply what happened at the end of the game. Matt Hack had 3 punts for 125 yards, no touchbacks. 1 was in the 20, and his longest was 44 yards. Andy Lee had 1 punt for 42 yards, and that's about it for the individual stats. So now that we got the individual stats out of the way, let's talk about the standings. The Dolphins are in second place in the AFC East behind the Buffalo Bills, who are 7-2. Dolphins are 5-3. Patriots are 2-5, and the Jets are 0-8. Those 2 last teams I mentioned, they're going to be playing each other on Monday Night Football. Now, Buffalo Bills won today. They were 6-2, and the Dolphins were 4-3, and now both teams got a win. And which is kind of unfortunate. I was hoping for the Seattle Seahawks to help out the Dolphins today by getting a win, but they didn't do that. Bills ended up beating them, and it's unfortunate. But as long as we keep progressing and maintaining some type of winning formula going, this is going to be really good for the Dolphins, because down the line, it doesn't matter whether or not we're going to be AFC East champions. As long as we keep competing and winning games, we could be in the playoffs. So I'm not saying the Dolphins are going to be in the playoffs, but they keep on this winning formula, things could work out, which is great. Now, the NFC West, Seattle Seahawks still lead it 6-2, and then the Cardinals dropped to 5-3, and then the Rams are also 5-3, and the San Francisco 49ers are 4-5, and things should be interesting from here on out. At least for the Dolphins, because after this is pretty much the midpoint of the season. They played 8 games already, and they ended it off on a 4-game winning streak, which is phenomenal. But then we play the Chargers next week. Then we have the Broncos. That's on the road. Jets on the road. Then we play the Bengals. And then to close off the last 4 games of the season, we have the Chiefs, Patriots, Raiders, and Bills. And 3 of those 4 games are going to be against people who are competing for the playoffs, potentially. So, Chiefs, Raiders, and Bills, those last 3 to 4 games are going to be pretty tough. And I know Bill Belichick and the Patriots are not going to let the Dolphins have a cakewalk to close out the season. So some things to look forward to. That's about it for at least this game. But what I could say as a little heads up for my midseason review, definitely going to go in depth about the last recent 4 games, which Dolphins have won each of them, which is great. They won the second quarter of the season, and there will be definitely more on that in my next video of the Dolphins. I'm not sure if I'm going to release it before or after my game picks video, but stay tuned on that. And that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. The Miami Dolphins are now 5-3 after defeating the Arizona Cardinals 34-1. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give a nice thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Click the post notification bell if you haven't done it yet. And also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @ByAustinRamos. And lastly, fins up.